Students, today we are going to take up a new topic in civics entitled State Legislature. Kindly open your textbooks to page number 87. You all know that in India we have a government at the center, a government at the state level, and we also have local self-government, that is the panchayats and the municipalities. We have already spoken about the government at the center, that is the union legislature and the union executive. Now we will be talking about the organs of the government at the state level, that is the state legislature, and then we will learn the next topic, that is the state executive. The legislative and the executive powers are divided into two sets of government in India. The Constitution provides for a division of law-making powers through a division of subjects. These subjects are divided into three lists. These lists of the government are known as the Union List, the State List, and the Concurrent List. In this chapter, we will study about the composition, the powers, and the other important details of the state legislature. Let us begin with the composition of the state legislature. Composition means what the state legislature comprises of or what it is made up of. The state legislature is similar to the parliament. Just as the parliament has got the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, in many states also we have two houses of the state legislature. They are the Vidhan Sabha and the Vidhan Parishad. The Vidhan Sabha is also known as the Legislative Assembly, and the Vidhan Parishad is known as the Legislative Council. In India, only 6 states have the second house, that is the Legislative Council or the Vidhan Parishad. Such states that have got 2 houses are known as bicameral legislatures. The states that have just one house are known as unicameral legislatures. The state legislature consists of the governor, the legislative assembly, which is also known as the Vidhan Sabha, and the legislative council, which is also known as the Vidhan Parishad. Remember that in India only 6 states have got the Vidhan Parishad, that is the legislative council. Let us now begin by talking about the governor of the state. The governor is both the constitutional head of the state and an agent of the central government in a state. So the governor is the one who reports to the prime minister about the affairs in the state. That is why he is known as an agent of the central government. He is an integral part of the state legislature, although he is not its member. So remember that the governor is not a member of the state legislature. The position of the governor of a state is compared to that of the president of India. Just as the president is the nominal head of the country, the governor is the nominal head of the state. Nominal means a namesake head. So the real head of the state is the chief minister, and the real head of the country is the prime minister. But the governor can exercise his powers on the real sense on some occasions. He acts as an agent of the central government in a state. Therefore, he is responsible for maintaining relations between the central government and the state government. A governor of a state can be given additional duty of the governor of the neighboring state as well. Let us now talk about the appointment and the tenure of the governor. The governor is appointed by the President of India for a tenure of 5 years. But before the expiry of his full term, the President can dismiss him from office. The governor may also decide to resign on his own. Sometimes, if needed, his term of office may be extended in the same state, or at times he also may be transferred to another state in between his tenure. However, the state government cannot remove the governor from his post. So, here we can conclude that the appointment and the removal of the governor is totally in the hands of the president. Now, let us move on to see the qualifications needed to be the governor of a state. Following are the qualifications to become the governor of a state. First and foremost, he must be a citizen of India. Secondly, he must not be less than 35 years of age. He must not be a member of either house of the parliament or of the state legislature. That means the governor should not be a member of the Lok Sabha, nor the member of the Rajya Sabha, nor should he be a member of any state legislature. And lastly, he should not hold any office of profit. Let us move on to understand the powers and functions of the governor. The governor summons and prorogues the sessions of the state legislature. To summon means to call a meeting, and to prorogue means to discontinue a meeting. The governor can also dissolve the state assembly. He addresses the members of the state legislature and may send messages. Without the governor's assent, no bill can become a law. This means that without the governor signing on a bill cannot become a law. In some cases, he can reserve the bill for the assent of the president. Money bills can be introduced in the state legislative assembly only with the prior permission of the governor. The governor may promulgate ordinances during this period. When the legislative assembly or both the houses of the legislature are not in session, that means the governor can make orders when both the houses are not in a meeting. The governor may nominate one member from the Anglo-Indian community to the Legislative Assembly. If there are Anglo-Indian people in a state and they are not duly represented in the state legislature, he may also nominate 1/6 members to the Legislative Council. The governor makes reports of various agencies placed on the floor of the state legislature. The annual budget of the state government is laid before the legislature with the prior permission of the governor. The governor must give his assent to money bills. Assent means he must sign on the money bills. The contingency fund of the state is also placed before or at the disposal of the governor. The governor has some discretionary powers which can be exercised by him independently. He may send any bill passed by the state legislature for the consideration of the president. That means if any bill needs to be looked upon moreover, he may send it to the president. He can appoint any member of the state legislature as the chief minister if no political party secures a majority. He can send a report to the president if there is a failure in constitutional machinery in the state. That means if the government is going to fall or going to collapse, the governor can send a report to the president. And if there is a collapse of the government, then the president will apply president's rule in the state. Such a situation, when there is application of president's rule, it is known as state emergency. During a state emergency, the governor of the state can exercise his powers independently. Let us now move on to understand the state legislature. We will first have a look at the composition of the state legislature. Composition means what is the state legislature made up of? The legislative assembly of each state is composed of members chosen by direct election. Some seats in the legislative assembly are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. The Legislative Council, which is the second house of the state legislature, is composed of partly elected and partly nominated members. Normally, one-sixth of the total members are nominated by the governor, and the rest are indirectly elected. One-third of its members are elected by the local governing bodies, like the Zilla Parishad and the municipalities. Another one-third are elected by the legislative assemblies. One-twelfth of its members are elected by the graduates of the constituency, and another one-twelfth by the teachers of secondary schools, colleges, and universities. Let us now move on to find out the tenure of the members of the Legislative Assembly. The duration of the Legislative Assembly is for 5 years, but it can be dissolved in the following situation. If the Chief Minister gives advice to the Governor to dissolve the Assembly, if the Assembly is dissolved by the President on the report given by the Governor regarding failure of constitutional machinery in the state. During an emergency, the term of the Legislative Assembly could also be extended by the Parliament for a period of 1 year at a time. In such a situation, elections must be held within 6 months of lifting the emergency. This means that if at all the government collapses in a state, then there can be president's rule, and this president's rule can be extended for 1 year at a time. But once it is extended, re-elections must be held in the state within 6 months. The Legislative Council is the permanent house of the state legislature, just as we have the Rajya Sabha, which is the permanent house of the parliament. In the Legislative Council, every 2 years, one-third of its members retire by rotation and new members are inducted. The State Legislative Council cannot be dissolved by the Governor. Let us now move on to talk about the sessions of the Legislative Assembly. Sessions means the meetings of the Legislative Assembly. The Legislative Assembly and the Legislative Council are expected to have at least 2 meetings in a year, and the duration between the 2 sessions should not be more than 6 months. The governor can summon and prorogue the sessions. The speaker can adjourn the house. To adjourn means to put off, that means to stop or to postpone.